Welcome to StoryBloom, a cozy corner on YouTube created especially for those who love Chinese romance, Danmei, boys' love, and fantasy novels. This channel was born out of a deep passion for storytelling and a desire to bring listeners moments of relaxation, excitement, and sometimes even heart-wrenching emotion through stories that have touched the hearts of millions across Asia and around the world that kick off this journey. There's no better choice than the legendary novel Heaven Official's Blessing, Tian Guan Ci Fu, by the renowned author Mo Xiang Tong Xiu. This masterpiece is one of her three most famous works, alongside The Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation and The Scum Villain's Self-Saving System. It's considered a must-read for any Danmei fan. With a gripping plot, beautifully written characters, and deeply human themes, Heaven Official's Blessing has become a cultural phenomenon in China. It has been adapted into a manhua, an animated series, and an upcoming live-action drama. Even beyond Asia, its English version has made waves. Heaven Official's Blessing has appeared on Amazon's bestseller list and even the New York Times bestseller list, making it one of the most internationally acclaimed Danmei novels to date. I truly hope you'll join me on this journey through the most captivating stories Chinese literature has to offer. If there's a novel you love and want to hear next, please drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your suggestions. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Who knows? Your favorite story might be our next series. Chapter 1. Among the gods, there was a famous laughingstock of the three realms. According to legend, 800 years ago, there was an ancient country in the central plains called Xianlu country. The ancient country of Xianlu was a vast land with abundant resources. The people were happy and harmonious. The country had four treasures: beautiful women, colorful music, gold, and jewels. There was also a famous crown prince. This crown prince, how to describe it, was an extraordinary man. The king and empress treated him like a pearl in their palms and doted on him. They always proudly said, "My son will become a wise ruler in the future." However, the crown prince had no interest in the wealth and power of the secular world. What he was interested in, as he often said to himself, was, "I want to save the common people." When the crown prince was young, he wholeheartedly cultivated. During his cultivation journey, there were two widely circulated stories. The first story happened when he was 17 years old. That year, the Xianlu country held a grand festival of sacrifice to the heavens, although this tradition had been abandoned for hundreds of years. It could still be imagined from the remnants of ancient books and the oral accounts of predecessors that it was a grand event that the whole world celebrated. Festival of Sacrifice, Divine Martial Street. On both sides of the street, there was a sea of people. Nobles chatted and laughed on top of tall buildings. Royal warriors in armor opened the way. Young girls danced, their snow-white hands sprinkling a rain of flowers. It was hard to tell who was more beautiful, the girls or the flowers. Melodious music came from the golden carriages, floating in the air above the entire imperial city. At the back of the honor guard, 16 white horses with golden bridles pulled a platform. On this high platform was the martial artist who was the center of attention. During the festival of sacrifice to the heavens, the martial artist would wear a golden mask, wear luxurious clothes, and hold a sword. He would act as the first martial god in 1,000 years. Divine Martial Emperor Junwu, once chosen as the martial artist, it was the highest honor. Thus, the selection criteria were extremely strict. This year, the one chosen was His Highness the Crown Prince. Everyone in the country believed that he would perform the most marvelous divine martial art in history. However, on that day, an accident happened. On the third round of the honor guard, they passed by a wall that was more than 10 feet tall. That time, the martial god on the platform was about to kill the demon with a single strike. This was the most exciting scene. Both sides of the street were boiling, and the top of the city wall was also surging. People were striving to be the first to poke their heads out, struggling and pushing the AT. This time, a child fell from the city gate tower. Screams filled the air. Just when people thought that this child's blood would splatter on Divine Martial Street, the crown prince slightly raised his head and leaped up to catch him. The crowd only had time to see a bird-like white shadow fly up into the sky before the crown prince landed safely with the child in his arms. The golden mask fell off, revealing the young and handsome face behind it. The next moment, the crowd cheered. The commoners were in high spirits, but the imperial preceptors of the imperial dojo were having a headache. He never expected such a big mistake to occur. Ominous, too ominous. Every time the platform circled around the imperial city, it symbolized a year of praying for the country's prosperity and people's peace. Now that it was interrupted, wasn't it inviting disaster? The imperial preceptors were so worried that their hair fell like rain. After thinking about it, they invited the crown prince and politely asked, "Your Highness, can you face the wall for a month to show your repentance?" He didn't really need to face the wall, just a gesture was enough. The crown prince smiled and said, "No." He said, "Saving people is not a bad thing. Why would the heavens punish me for doing the right thing?" What if heaven punished him? Then heaven is wrong. Why should the right apologize to the wrong? The imperial preceptors were speechless. This crown prince was such a person. He had never met anything he couldn't do, and he had never met someone who didn't love him. He was the right path in the world, he was the center of the world. Therefore, although the imperial preceptors were in pain, what do you know? They couldn't say much, and they didn't dare to. Anyway, His Highness wouldn't listen. The second story also happened when the crown prince was 17. According to legend, there was a bridge south of the Yellow River called One Thought Bridge. A ghost had been wandering on this bridge for many years. This ghost was very terrifying. It wore broken armor, stepped on hellfire, and was covered in blood and arrows. Every step it took left a trail of blood and fire behind it. Every few years, it would suddenly appear at night and wander on the bridge. It stopped pedestrians and asked 3 questions. Where is this place? Who am I? What can you do? If the answer was wrong, the ghost would swallow them. However, no one knew what the correct answer was. Therefore, over the years, this ghost had swallowed countless pedestrians. The crown prince heard about this while he was wandering and found One Thought Bridge. He guarded the bridge every night, and finally, one night, he encountered the haunting ghost. The ghost appeared and was as scary as the rumors said. It asked the crown prince the first question. The crown prince answered with a smile, "This is the human world." But the ghost said, "This is seamless." Opening the door was a blessing, but he answered the first question wrong. The crown prince thought, "I'm going to answer all 3 questions wrong anyway, why should I wait for you to finish?" So he took out his weapon and started fighting. This battle was fought until the heavens and the earth darkened. The crown prince was very skilled in martial arts, and the ghost was even more fearsome. One man and one ghost fought on the bridge until the sun and moon almost turned upside down. In the end, the ghost was defeated. After the ghost disappeared, the crown prince planted a flower tree at the bridge. At this time, a Taoist passed by and happened to see the crown prince sprinkling yellow soil to send him off. He asked, "What are you doing?" The crown prince said the famous 8 words, "The body is in seamless, the heart is in paradise." The Taoist listened and smiled. He turned into a general in white armor, stepped on the auspicious clouds, and left with the wind. Only then did the crown prince know that he happened to meet the divine martial emperor who had personally come to the human world to subdue demons. The immortals and deities of the various heavens had noticed this outstanding soul-pleasing martial artist when he leaped into the upper Yuan sacrificial heaven. After meeting at One Thought Bridge, an immortal asked the emperor, "What do you think of the crown prince?" The emperor also answered with 8 words, "This person's future is limitless." That night, there was a strange phenomenon above the palace. The thunder and lightning. The crown prince ascended. Whenever someone ascended, the heavenly realm would tremble. The moment the crown prince ascended, the entire heavenly realm trembled. It was too difficult to cultivate to the end. It required talent, cultivation, and opportunity. The birth of a god was often a long road of 100 years. It wasn't that. There weren't any prodigies who ascended to immortality at a young age. There were also people who spent their entire lives cultivating arduously for 100 years without even seeing a single heavenly tribulation. Even if a heavenly tribulation came, they would still die if they couldn't pass it. Even if they didn't die, they would still be crippled. There were as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges River. They were ignorant mortals who spent their entire lives mediocre and couldn't find their own path, and this crown prince was undoubtedly the favorite of the heavens. There was nothing he couldn't get if he wanted. There was nothing he couldn't do if he wanted to do it. He wanted to ascend to become a god, and he really did it at the age of 17. He was originally the heart of the people. In addition, the king and the queen missed their beloved son, so they ordered to build temples and temples everywhere for him. They opened caves and erected statues for the people to worship. The more believers there were, the longer the lifespan, and the stronger the magic power. Thus, the crown prince of Xianlu Palace enjoyed unparalleled glory in a few short years. He flourished and reached the peak, until 3 years later, Xianlu was in chaos. The chaos was caused by the king's tyranny and the rebel army's uprising. However, although the flames of war were everywhere in the world, the heavenly officials couldn't interfere. Unless demons and ghosts crossed the border and invaded, they could do whatever they wanted. Think about it, there were disputes everywhere in the world. Everyone felt that they were in the right. If everyone interfered, you would support your country today, and he would avenge his descendants tomorrow. Wouldn't the gods fight each other and the sun and moon lose their light? In the case of the crown prince, it was even more necessary to avoid arousing suspicion, but he didn't care. He said to the emperor, "I want to save the common people." The emperor, who had thousands of years of divine power, didn't dare to say these words all day. Hearing him say this, one could imagine how he felt. But he couldn't do anything about it. "You can't save everyone." The crown prince said, "I can." And so, he descended to the world without hesitation. The people of Xianlu naturally celebrated. However, folktales from ancient times had tried their best to tell people a truth. When gods descended to the world without permission, nothing good would come of it. So, not only did the flames of war not subside, they burned even more crazily. It wasn't that the crown prince didn't try hard, but he might as well not have tried. The harder he tried, the more chaotic the situation became. The people of Xianlu were beaten badly and suffered heavy casualties. In the end, a plague swept through the entire imperial city. The rebel army entered the palace and the war ended. If Xianlu was originally struggling at death's door, then the crown prince directly killed it after the country was destroyed. People suddenly realized something. It turned out that the crown prince they worshipped as a god wasn't as perfect and powerful as they had imagined. Tio put it bluntly, wasn't he just a good-for-nothing who couldn't accomplish anything? With nowhere to vent the pain of losing their homes and families, the people covered in pain angrily rushed into the crown prince's palace. They pushed down the statues and burned down the temples. The 8,000 temples burned for 7 days and 7 nights until nothing was left. From then on, a martial god who protected peace disappeared, and a god of plagues who brought disaster was born. If people said you were a god, then you were a god. If people said you were shit, then you were shit. Whatever people said you were, you were. That was how it was. The crown prince couldn't accept this reality no matter what. What he couldn't accept even more was the punishment he had to accept. Banishment, sealing magic power, banishing him to the world. He grew up being pampered, and had never suffered the sufferings of the world. And this punishment made him fall from the clouds to the mud. In this mud, he experienced hunger, poverty, and filth for the first time. It was also the first time he did things he never thought he would do in his life: stealing, robbing, cursing, and abandoning himself to despair. He lost all face, lost all self-esteem, and became as ugly as one could imagine. Even his most loyal servant couldn't accept this change and chose to leave. The body is in the seamless realm, the heart is in the land of peach blossoms. These 8 words were engraved all over Xianli's stone tablets and plaques. If it wasn't for the fact that almost all of them had been burned down after the chaos of war, if His Royal Highness the Crown Prince were to see them again, he would probably be the first to rush up and smash them. The person who said this had personally proved that when he was in the Avatar, his heart could not be in the land of peach blossoms. He ascended to the sky fast, and fell even faster. He caught a glimpse of the divine martial path, and met the demons and immortals on the bridge of thought. It seemed like it was yesterday. But the heavens sighed for a while, and let bygones be bygones, until one day, after many years, there was a loud noise in the sky. The crown prince had ascended for the second time. Since ancient times, the celestial officials who were banished were either unable to recover or fell into the ghost realm. There were few who could make a comeback after being banished. The second ascension was well-deserved, and it was grand and spectacular. Even more vigorous was that after he ascended, he rushed into the heaven realm, punching and kicking, killing in all directions. Thus, he only ascended for the time it took for a stick of incense to burn before he was beaten down again, the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. It could be said that it was the fastest and shortest ascension in history. If the first ascension was a beautiful story, then the second ascension was a farce. After the two ascensions, the heaven realm was full of disgust towards the crown prince. Other than disgust, there was also a bit of vigilance. After all, being banished once was enough to kill him. If he was banished twice, wouldn't his inner demons rise and take revenge on the common people? Who knew that after being banished this time, he did not turn into a demon, and was quite obedient in adapting to the life of being banished. There was no problem at all. The only problem wasn't he too serious? Sometimes, he performed on the streets, and was proficient in all kinds of musical instruments. Even breaking rocks with his chest was not a problem. Although they had long heard that the crown prince was good at singing and dancing, and was multi-talented, but to actually see it in such a way really made people have mixed feelings. Sometimes he was diligent in collecting junk, all the celestials and gods were shocked. Things had already reached this point, and it was unimaginable. So much so that nowadays, if someone were to say, "Your son is the crown prince of Xianlu," it would be much more vicious than saying that the other party had no descendants. In any case, he was once the crown prince, a heavenly official ranked in the celestial list. Who else could muddle along to this point? The so-called laughingstock of the three realms was like this. After laughing, some sentimental people might even sigh that high and mighty heaven's favored one really had completely disappeared. The statue of the gods collapsed, the country was destroyed, not a single believer was left, and he was gradually forgotten by the world. Thus, no one knew where he wandered to. Being banished once was already a great shame and humiliation. After being banished twice, no one could climb up again. After many years, suddenly one day, there was another loud noise in the sky fell and the earth split, the earth quaked and the mountains swayed, the ever-burning lanterns trembled, and the flames danced wildly. All the heavenly officials were startled awake from their own golden palaces, and ran around asking, which new noble ascended? It was really a big battle. Who knew? Just as they were sighing, amazing, 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 they looked back and saw that all the gods and Buddhas in the sky had been struck. Are you done yet?